Today, it is the 18th of January 2023, and I'm glad that you're joining us today here on Morning Prime. Global Today is a program where we center our focus on matters diplomacy, international affairs, and security, just to get the feel and flavor of what is happening in the world currently. Of course, this year, everyone is looking at what will be panning out at the World Economic Forum that was opened yesterday. We'll be giving you details of what they're going to be discussing. Myriad and conflicts of issues right now, given the current state of play of the globe, looking at the Ukraine and Russia war that continue to persist. There will be a ceasefire. There was a ceasefire, we know, just momentarily over Christmas for them to observe Christmas. That was the Orthodox. But we can see the war is not really abating, and the world is getting affected by the developments there. Also, most of the African leaders, especially from South Africa, like President Cyril Ramaphosa, has not actually given that particular opportunity for him to be appearing at the World Economic Forum because of the power crisis in South Africa. This has persisted, and the country now is protesting. Right, what is the way forward as far as the power crisis is concerned in South Africa? Somalia here, Al-Shabaab continue to rear its ugly head. And we're given to understand as well the president will be coming to this country, and we'll be talking about the current resurgence of Al-Shabaab in Somalia and what it does portend for us here in the country and the region so far. And of course, we keep our eyes on what is happening in Ethiopia so far. In Rwanda, now they're setting up emergencies, of course, refugee camps. And we just talked about it last week, where the president was really talking movingly regarding the crisis of the refugee in Rwanda. And he was saying that should not be their problem. This is an international crisis, and the world should take the share of this burden. We've got a lot to discuss. And are we a cheating nation, right? Yesterday, we had the demographic of course, analysis and the report that was released by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And some counties are leading as far as cheating is concerned in this country, right? And that is what we have as splash in some of the dailies this morning. We shall be discussing this with our panelists this morning. We have Dr. Hassan Kanenje, Director of the Horn Institute. We do have with us as well Ahmed Hashi, who's a governance and policy analyst. We have with us as well Professor Noah Midamba, who is a foreign policy and defense analyst, and of course also senior associate with GLOSEP. And we do have with us as well Peter Kagwanja, who is the CEO of Africa Policy Institute. Let me just welcome them this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Especially Noah Midamba. I haven't seen you this year.
Morning, Duval.
Good to see you. Happy felicitation for the new year, right?
I had a great time.
You had a great time?
Yes. Up in Kindu Bay.
Up in Kindu Bay?
Yeah. And Busia County.
And Busia County?
Yeah.
So you were toing and froing between Busia County
and... I had a lot of fun.
A lot of fun?
Yeah, and family activities, communities. Just a great time.
Indeed. Yeah. It's good to have a nice crossover.
It means a lot of fish.
A lot of fish.
Fish, chicken, cow.
You know the
everything. Goat.
Camel.
There's no camel in the end. It takes to eat fish.
Yes.
Very high sense of technology. You have to separate it. It's not like waru.
Yeah.
But you have to separate the damn thing.
Yeah, I'll take a
Waru,
guanja.
just chew it down.
And we'll take a guanja and teach him.
About fish from the front
from the back to the front.
The Indian is on the back.
Or it's like a cut, it passes from one side of the mouth to the other.
Yes.
Coming out as a bone.
Got it.
We're going to horrify some people, the Americans. You have to stop at some stage when you are eating fish.
Yeah.
You don't go to the head.
Yeah.
You stop there.
Yeah.
That's international etiquette.
No.
The Nyanza one is
No.
The head is the sweetest.
Nothing is left. Just the eye.
Yeah. That's where the brain is.
That's where you get your omega-3.
Yeah. Brain.
So what is the outlook for this year, Noah Midamba?
Well,
do you make resolutions, or you stopped making resolutions yourself?
No, I don't want to make resolutions about. I just want to say one thing.
Yes.
That Lee Kuan Yew, in his letter from the grave, said...
Letter from the grave?
Yeah, from two prominent things. One, he had a choice to become the richest man in the world.
Yes.
Or he had a choice to lift his country to become the top 10 top economy in the world. He chose the latter, and he did it. So I want to urge the new administration, President Ruto, that there are several objectives they have outlined, which are very important for the country. But that will not happen unless two things happen. Have a dent on corruption, and you will be the first to do that because the previous 4 presidents were not able to do it.
Yes.
Secondly, unite Kenyans, like Gandhi did in India, like Mandela did in South Africa, so that we have a sense of nationhood and begin to develop this country. That is the message I got from the local people about.
Yes.
As we were celebrating Christmas and all that. That is the desire of Kenya.
Oh, that is the desire of Kenyans.
Yes.
Right. Let's hear from Peter Kagwanja. Your county will be discussing it momentarily. For an issue of concern as well.
No, my county is bigger than Mauritius, and we have hope that we'll be having a greater. But that's true. Our population is 1.2. Mauritius is 1.2. The land mass, Murang'a is larger, and we have more natural soils and all that. So I don't know what other bad, bad, do we call it bad mouthing or bad speaking bad of a county? I don't know what you have in store, but that's what I have. With Murang'a is the best county that God ever created, and if there is another one he created, he kept it for himself. But in the meantime, I think I want to take this opportunity to welcome my brother, Professor Noah Mindaba, to this studio. We missed his humor while he was away. He should tell us exactly why he was away, because I don't think he was away eating fish. That's a big, big lie. Even though you are eating fish, you are here. So he should exactly tell us where he was. And as he tells us where he was, he should tell us what he has brought us, because you don't come empty-handed to such a wonderful panel. My friend Hashi has not been doing well in many fronts, so he thought your bag has some goodies.
You come bearing goods.
But here he comes.
This is a typical Kenyan.
But he just comes with smells.
You can't believe. I was worried if I leave Kanenje alone, Kanenje will be in trouble. So I had to come back.
You had to come to rescue.
That is true.
The son of Muruya decided to go to Mecca. That's another debate for another day. So, yeah, on a serious note, I think it has been a very eventful week for me. In many ways, I was in the preparation for GROSSEP. GROSSEP are having a big conference on maritime maritime security generally, but more specifically on the Japanese concept of free zone in the Indian Ocean, or the Indo-Pacific region, the linking of Indian Ocean and Pacific. And I think they're also celebrating 60 years since independence with Kenya. And they're using that moment to reflect on the strategy that is supposed to bring peace to the Indo-Pacific region. Again, it's the backdrop of rising nations. I think Japan is facing emerging nations from China, India, smaller nations like Indonesia, which are also powerful, Malaysia and so on. So that was one of the major events that I have been looking at in the course of the week. That's great. We also are pushing our PhD students, so wherever we can at the University of Nairobi, we want a number to graduate and elsewhere. So very eventful week.
Okay.
Not fish eating.
Let's hear from a guy who's Billy Mouth and just smiling here. Dr. Hassan Kanenji, the diplomat.
My younger brother.
With regard to what I expect for the year?
Of course, yeah.
I expect that, the efforts have been made, and especially led by Kenya, to try and move towards, resolution of conflicts in the Congo and in Ethiopia are going to bear fruits this year, under the parties are going to move towards more Pacific, settlements. I think it's better for the region. I expect that the discussions with regard to expansion of the EAC to include Somali are going to start taking place in a serious way, but that we also are going to have more concerted efforts to try and get rid of the scourge of terror. We have seen what Al-Shabaab has been doing, not just in Somalia, but recently, even in Kenya again. So I expect a lot of these efforts that the region should be moving in a more positive direction, and that we can build on some of their successes we've been able to register as a region this past year to ensure that 2023 is going to be the year of Africa.
Year of Africa. Habad Hashi, good morning.
Good morning, Debal. My contribution today is that we should not export any more coffee. Debal, my number one love apart from politics is coffee. And Debal, the prices of coffee, Debal, if you look at the Forbes or if you look at the New York Stock Exchange, Starbucks is over there. In Canada, it's Tim Hortons. In Europe, it is $5 for a cup of coffee, 5 pounds or 4 pounds at the airport. Debal, our farmers are swatting in the middle of the heat, and coffee has become a tiresome job. And I think it's about time that this government stopped the whole country from exporting coffee, unless we have put up a massive institution of marketing and factories that add value to our coffee. Debal, the people in Europe and America drink the best coffee in the world, while we drink the worst coffee in the world, and we're a coffee-producing nation.
Right.
So it's very important for us to make sure that we call all the coffee exporting countries in the world and form a cartel, and stop sending this coffee to Europe and the United States until there's value added to it, while we're thinking of industrialization, because coffee export is not an economy, Deval. That's not an economy.
I think
it's a colonial economy.
Rigathi Gachagua should consult you on this as well, so that you can have a...
Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, Deval, was the governor of this county, that is, and the Agikuyu people do not agree with him at all, because they are revolutionary people who helped us win the Mau Mau. He said that he was there because the Agikuyu helped him, and that he should not play around with matatus. That's the deputy president of Kenya. Should not be speaking like this. This is terrible.
All right. Okay, thank you. And do you mind also just lowering your seat a bit? Because you look like,
I have a little bit of a back problem.
Okay.
So that's why I have the seat. If I put it down here...
No, I feel like I'm in Abraham's supermarket and you have those girls they're watching over their stocks.
It's not bad. I put it down a bit.
Just lower it so that at least we can have...
We're nearly the same.
All right. Let's just see what we have on the front pages of the dailies today. We begin with the bold paper, The Standard. This is what you're waking up to on the front page of The Standard today. State of the nation, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Demographic survey, a new study unveiled yesterday, shows that Kenya is making steady progress on some key indicators, but it also notes that the country lags behind in stemming pervasive vices and that many Kenyans have multiple sex partners. This story is on page 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the Standard today. And some quick facts also are just tabulated for you here. First of all, cheating. Average numbers of sexual partners are 2.3 among women and 7.4 among men. There's also the HIV testing. 47% of women and 39% of men tested in last 12 months of survey. We have the also gender-based violence. Physical violence against women declined from 20% in 2014 to 16% in 2022. Vaccination, 8 in 10 children aged 12 and 23 months are fully vaccinated with the basic antigens. And also land ownership, 25% of women own agricultural land. 32% is the mortality, infant mortality rate at 30 deaths per 1,000 lives but last 5 years. That is the current state of play. And it says here that the 2022 Kenya Health and Demographic Survey published annually yesterday shows that Murang'a and Kericho counties reported the highest percentage of women who had an addition of 2 sexual partners in the last 12 months at 11% and 6.5% respectively. 78%, that is a percentage of Kenya's children who are on the right track developmentally in health, learning, and psychosocial well-being. That is on the front page. Young at heart, man weds at 99. Even the others are cheating. We have a man at 99 who's actually marrying here. A good lesson from the old folk that you can follow the story there on page 3. And also we'll run you that story. We have it, of course, lined up this morning just to give you a sense and flavor of how traditionally people still, they are also respecting the institution of marriage, as we're having people from Murang'a and Kericho, where Professor Kagwanja comes from. That's how I was actually flagging him and telling him there's a crisis in his county, where morally, with the women as well. This is the Standard this morning. Ruto reveals attempt on Chebukati's life. That story is tucked on page 8. Also, drought threat to wildlife. We have on page 21 of the Standard. Auditor queries IPP payments. 24 is a page that you need to follow there. The business segment of the Standard and search for best sports person still goes on. You have that story on page 38 and 39 of the Standard this morning. Daily Nation holding this splash. A cheating nation. That is a splash today. This should be a pause giver for us today, even as we're waking up to, are we truly a cheating nation? Going by those demographics surveys, revelations, Murang'a leads on the percentage of women who had more than 2 partners in the past 12 months. It's all about society, and it's all about infidelity. A new government survey has exposed the extent of extramarital affairs in Kenya, revealing that men have an average of 7 sexual partners in their lifetime, while women have 2. The report that also details trends in sexual behavior in the counties in the past 12 months shows how the reckless behavior could be fueling the spread of sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. Remember, we had the splashes that gonorrhea, there's the superbug gonorrhea also going around in Nairobi. And this goes to show what is really happening, especially with our morality, the moral decadence that we are enrolled in right now. And people also, they're paying for it with STIs. Page 2, 3, and 4 of the Daily Nation is what you want to follow inside the paper today. And percentage of men and women who had 2 partners in the past 12 months. Top 5 counties: Narok 42.5%. We have also Migori 28.7%, Elgeyo Marakwet 28.5%. We have West Pokot 27.2%, Embu 25.5%. Murang'a, top 5 counties. This is for women. Murang'a leads there, followed by Kericho, Busia, Kiambu, and Bungoma. All right, so if you're dating from these counties as well, you need to counter check and pray hard that you get a good discernment. If properly you're given of course, the right reality. Are you the only one? Why Kenyan family is shrinking? The number of children born by a Kenyan woman has halved in the past 3 decades. A trend experts are endorsing as positive to the country's healthcare. They attribute this decline in fertility rate to education for women and girls, use of family planning methods, and the desire to have a quality life. And this story is on page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. And of course, compared with the East African nations, Kenya lags behind in terms of fertility rates. What does it portend for us also regionally with the integration? Cosmetics, juices, alcohol prices are going up. This is all because of excise stamp. And you can follow the story there, all about taxes, on the back page of the Daily Nation. Ruto alleges plot to abduct and kill Chebukati of Paul. Also, did he have to die over missing dogs? This is Bernard Wandeto, a financial engineering graduate, was just setting off in his career and had a lot to look forward to in life, such as raising his 3-month-old baby girl. But as others ushered in the new year with merrymaking, a nightmare was just unfolding for him. You can follow the story inside the Daily Nation on page 12. And it wasn't me. New twist in murder plot. In leaked WhatsApp messages, the man accused by his wife of plotting to kill her has acknowledged he hired the men that picked her at the airport, but claims they duped her on the murder plot to extort her. He claims his life is also in danger and that the friend he had hired now wants to eliminate him. You have the story on page 10 of the Daily Nation today. Boarding schools to stay, says ministry. Proposals to abolish centers dropped. And Kafogo, accused of grabbing prime land. Traders sues politicians over city property. And that story is on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. This up next. There is a plot intrigues as Ruto throws in bombshells, or a bombshell there. Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni terms the claims as utter nonsense. That story is tucked on page 2. And looking at the flagger, President says there was a plan to kill Chebukati so that IBC will be paralyzed. And also we have the story that has been leading on other dailies, Muranga men and women to top list of promiscuous counties. What the KDHS report says about lifestyle and all has been, of course, tabulated here or enumerated for you to follow. That story continues inside the Star this morning on page 4 and 5. Let's move on to see what we have on the front page of the People Daily. Country of the poor. That is a splash. Country of the poor. New demographic survey reveals that half of Kenyan men and women lack land and houses. Large number of children stunted or malnourished. Gender violence, teen pregnancies rampant. And we have also the figures dropped there for you. Women, 33%. Proportion of women who own a house. Of which 28% own it jointly with a spouse and 5% own it alone. Also 25% proportion of women who own agricultural land. Of which 20% own it jointly, while only a paltry 3% own it alone. Children, 18% of children under 5 are stunted. That means they are too short for their age due to poor nutrition. 20% of children in rural areas are stunted compared to 12% of those in urban areas. Stunting decreases with increased wealth. Also, we have 3% of children under 5 are overweight compared to 10% who are underweight or too thin for their age. And 22% of children born to mothers with no education are stunted. That story, you shall follow it, or you can follow it on page 2 and 3 of the People Daily. Now, men, we have 47% proportion of men aged 15 to 54 who own a house. Of this, 36% own it alone, while 9.4% own jointly with a spouse. 33.6% of men own agricultural land. Of this, 26% own it alone, while 4% own it with a spouse. This is the People Daily. Looking on the teaser there, Ruto state plan to murder Chebukati. This is what he said. President says plot was meant to paralyze IBC and subvert will of voters in August 9 polls. Who's Kenya's best sportsman and woman? That's a probing question. Newsbeat has all the answers there on page 31 of the People Daily. Waliopata 400 KCP wazusha. That is a splash on the front page of Taifa Leo. Wanafunzi hawa walikuwa 9,000 ila si wote walipata nafasi katika shule za kitaifa zilizo na nafasi 38. You can follow the story inside Taifa Leo this morning. And let's just buckle down to business. Treasury plots 300% stamp tax hike on alcohol and makeup. Farms to pass on higher stamp prices to consumers. Change adds to recent 6.3% adjustment for inflation. Farms to pass on higher stamp prices to consumer. And changes add to recent 3.6% adjustment for inflation. Also, regulator punishes 10 insurance firms, triple industry fines. And you can read the story about insurance there from the regulatory authority, that is Insurance Regulatory Authority, who are reining in on some of the rogue industry players there. That story tucked on page 2. Kenya lays ground to lift mineral exploration freeze. Also, Nairobi Security Exchange day trading deals hit 4 billion shillings in first year since its launch, and electricity prices rise marginally in January. And that story continues on page 14 of the Business Daily. Let's cross over to Uganda. Arts teachers go on strike over pay is a splash here. Same old songs after being beaten back to class last year when they pushed for equal treatment with their science counterparts. Arts teachers are now demanding 100% salary rise before they report for first time in 2 weeks. That story continues on page 4 of the Daily Monitor. And capacity building, Africa High Level Forum kickoff in Kampala. Africa High Level Forum kickoff in Kampala. You can see some of the delegates there also being ushered in for the forum. In Tanzania, new twist for EAC monetary body timeline. Right, new twist for EAC monetary body timeline. You can read all the details there inside the Citizen in Tanzania. Why African talents need promotion. And you can see the face of Komla Duma there, the late Komla Duma, who was a journalist with the BBC. Read all about it inside the Citizen this morning in Tanzania. New survey findings reveal why many families borrow, and Zanzibar Airport controversy rages as another firm files case. Still there in Tanzania, Utata Watanda, Waumini Moto, that is a splash. And the East Africa this week is carrying this particular headline. Uganda Dar SGR line clear as Kenya derailed. And or after close to 8 years of funding drought, Kampala has ditched China for Turkey to build a modern railway. Meanwhile, Kenya grapples with a broken link to Malaba in the race for the EA market. You have the story on page 4 and 5 of the East African. And some brews over Kagame order on Congo refugees. Rwanda leaders view that Congolese go home if Kinshasa remains hostile, draws mixed reactions. That story continues on page 10. And Sudan seeks Ruto to help to return to AU. Sudan is seeking Ruto to help to return to AU. Khartoum wants Kenyan statesmen to see it back into the fold to save economy. That story continues on page 6 of the East African this morning. We shall be discussing this as well with the panelists. And in Rwanda, still the story I was raising about the refugee. Rwanda sets up emergency camps as more Congolese refugees arrive. And you can see that happening right now, a view of Nkamira Transit Center that was opened in Kanzenze sector, Rubavu district on Monday. According to the Ministry of Emergency Management, the center is currently accommodating 670 Congolese refugees. Statistics shows that more than 2,900 Congolese nationals had crossed into Rwanda since November 2022, fleeing insecurity, persecution, and violence in eastern DR Congo. That story, you can follow it on page 3 of the New Times in Rwanda. Let's see what is happening internationally there, of course, across the borders to UK here. And leveling up is so 2019. Leveling up is so 2019. This is what Sunak's Tories are now gorging up. Anti-aging drugs moves a step closer. And we can see getting carried away here. The Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg was briefly held by police after joining protest against the gas whaler 2 mine in western Germany. It's all about the coal mine, and the climate activist who is well known is carried away by police. Don't let them eat cake. Don't let them eat cake. Sweet treats in the office are like passive smoking, says food standard chiefs. And that story, you can follow it in the New Times. Also, Papa Nation, the court that came in from the cold and take over at Man United. Of course, British billionaire enters race about who this British billionaire is. And The Guardian, clamor for inquiry into officers who allowed rapists to stay in Met, calls for investigations into failure to sack David Carrick after warning. That is a story that you want to follow also inside The Guardian on page 13. We have £21 million paid to boss of problem care homes, and also another picture there of Thunberg, who is being detained at coal protest in Germany. Climate activist Greta Thunberg was among several people held during a protest against the demolition of a German village to make way for a coal mine, right? Of course, everyone now is talking about the zero net emission. Are they also hacking back or drawing back on their commitment as far as the zero net emission is concerned, especially Germany? Now, with the crisis with Ukraine, where there is an energy crisis, people are reverting to coal. This is The Guardian for us. We have the editorial cartoons, and this is what Gado has drawn for us today. I want to engage our panelists on this as well to just chime in. Here is the will your parents left for you, kid. Here is the will your parents left for you, kid. And this is just showing the current state of play of our nation. One, the will from our parents to our kids is one, political conmanship. Two, more of the same. Three, another handshake. Four, tough economic times. Five, debt, corruption, more debt, and more blah, 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 blah. It continues with the scroll there. This is 2023, and you can see your children or a child there holding the sands of times, the hourglass, and the phone. These are difficult times. This is what Garo has drawn for us. Also, looking at Magoha and School of Surgery. Kindly be gentle. I don't know why Magoha is back up, because this is education reforms here.
I don't see
with the trolley horns.
Yeah, but I don't see the smoke coming.
He's not snorting.
No, he's not.
As a bull.
Yeah, no.
This is what we have in the Daily Nation today. Remembering Magoha the bull at the School of Surgery. This is all about CBC, that now people are thrown into confusion regarding the transition now to the junior secondary school. We are woefully ill prepared to actually accommodate all these children in terms of facilities as well, and the great divide between now the private sector, or the public schools, and the private schools. And we have also the exit of IBC. This is how Chebukati is leaving IBC. He says that, yeah, he's left structures, according to him, but Ozone seems to actually take it differently. This is what I'll leave for you to decipher. You can see the underthings are being hanged on top there. We have people peeping from the pole boxes there, and everything is strewn all over the offices as it goes. But he also is carrying a big bag of money. Hassan Kanenjo, talk about IBC briefly, or let us begin with the Hashi.
Yes.
She's banning.
Thank you very much. You began with Hassan Kanenja. It's important for us to come counterclockwise. You know, the right wing sits over there.
That is blasphemous.
The left wing sits over here. I think, there's a reason why this panel is being lauded across the continent anymore, because we're setting a premise about how to discuss our issues, which was very difficult before. And I think this is a groundbreaking thing. And I just want to tell you that it's very important. I'm reminded of the great Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who said that if we wait for freedom to present itself to us, we shall wait in vain. And the ball, you know, I think that there's some things that the office of the president shouldn't do. And part of that is using words like Chebukati and the Electoral Commission. The ball, the citizens of this country don't have school fees. They don't have bus fare. There's no food at the table, Debal. The economy is basically in Golgotha. Debal, people are eating 1 square meal a day now. The country is in the throes of what I might call a recession. And, you know, Debal, if I could just give you a concrete example about the kind of focus that's needed in government today, is this competency-based education. Now, on one hand, Mr. Ruto, President Ruto, is absolutely right in saying we're going to pull hundreds of thousands of more children into the education system and build infrastructure, better classrooms, and all these things are vital to our national life. And then the International Monetary Fund, Debal, is threatening our president by telling him that he cannot put money in the education fund. Debal, this is just simple mathematics, and the economists out there and public policy people know about this. The International Monetary Fund's basic philosophy, Debal, is to cut, slash, and burn, because they believe that after that growth will occur. Debal, you know, this is what Ronald Reagan used to call voodoo economics. I want to urge President Ruto to make sure that our investments in education are there. And we should not agree to the International Monetary Fund's thinking about education. Secondly, Debal, I think that the government needs to have a clear message on the economy like it did have in the campaign. I mean, when they went to Nyanyuki and they came out, Debal, we really didn't have like a 5-pointer telling us that these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things we're going to invest in, and these are the repercussions they're going to have. Secondly, I question the idea of cutting and slashing in our economy while we're in such a ridiculous state of the economy. Debal, one group of economists can say kwaheri, and another group of economists can say das vidanya. We have different opinions about the economy. But there is one question that is very clear, is that the supply and the demand curves really don't work in an uneven economy. And we have to, like the great President Kibaki, probably the best president we ever had in this republic, understand that we need to spur growth by making sure that 3 things occur. The best social program on earth, Debal, is a job. Is a job. And how to create jobs in this country is not rocket science. It's absolutely not rocket science, because we know that the fund which was being given is giving people only 500,000 to 800,000 shillings and 500 shillings. And Debal, it is nonsense to say that the culture of borrowing is going to give you more money. It's not true, Debal. It's not economics, it's voodoo economics. So I want to put it to you, Debal, that it's very important that we try and help our government and our private sector to try and create the best social, economic and social policy in this country is for people to have decent jobs.
Thank you.
And to do that, Debal, the government needs to start thinking on its feet.
Thank you. I appreciate. Let us just get granular also with the editorial cartoons, I think, because they normally also give us a sense of what we can discuss on briefly. I appreciate Hash's comments on a general, current state of play about the economy. We need to get granular as well. Moving on.
So what specifically do you want me to answer?
I wanted to comment on what we have on the editorial cartoons, especially on the moral decadence. If you may just, on a lighter note, and of course also give us what Gado is trying to portray here regarding, where we are as a country and the future of our children as well.
Depends on jobs.
Thanks, Debal. Just to comment on the first point that my brother mentioned,
the right wing
about about many Kenyans not affording 3 square meals a day, and only affording 1 square meal a day. I don't know which part of the world you come from, but where you come from, even when they get that meal, it's not square.
Square, true.
Yes. So if a square meal is one that is substantial, satisfying, and balanced. So how is Ideri or Uji, balanced in that sense? But that was on a lighter note. Now, with regard to the editorial cartoon, I find it curious. It paints a very pessimistic picture of the kind of inheritance, of course, we're leaving for children. And I do not think that while it is true that we've been a country of very bad manners, that this is exactly what we are actually giving to our children. I think there are a lot of parents out here who are trying their best, but sometimes the environment is just not permissive to allow them to transfer the kind of ethics and the kind of hope that is going to be necessary. Now, I think beyond this, what we also need to do, because this is the kind of highlights there, corruption, date, conmanship, blah, 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 blah. It could be misleading. Because we make judgments about political conmanship and stuff like that. There's politics the world over. Mm-hmm. And politics involves a degree of deception, whether it's in the United States or it's in Kenya. I think the fundamental things there that, of course, we have to concern ourselves is corruption. It's not about the handshake per se, because it depends on what the handshake is going to offer countries. If it's going to offer stability and progress, then it's going to be good. And so I think whoever drafted this, they may have tried to send a certain message, but some of those highlights are actually misleading. But I do agree that extreme date and corruption are actually vices that I think should be fought.
Mm-hmm. Right, Peter Kagwanja.
Debal, I see what Gando is trying to tell us, and the agenda is clear, that we want to be a Burkina Faso, a country of great men. In Madinka, a country of respectable men. But I don't believe in the cynicism. We have become a very cynical nation that we relish in talking ill of ourselves. We make jokes about ourselves. And therefore, the new inheritance we are giving to our children are not lessons about being a nation of integrity. It's a nation that degrades itself. And therefore, we must be very careful not to keep on telling the heavens, the universe, that we are the worst that ever existed on the planet Earth. And therefore, we must have a kind word for ourselves, especially where our children are concerned. I am not trying to say that what is here is not true, but I don't think all politicians in Kenya are conmen. It's not true. I don't believe that we have more of the same, what we had last year. It's not true. It is not true that we have another handshake.
In the offing.
In the offing. I don't believe it. And if it comes, it must be very different from the other handshake. So, in other words, we are giving ourselves room to think because we are crowded by this cynicism. The last time I saw this kind of cynicism was in the British society. And I hope this is not part of the colonial legacy. Somebody said, you know, the government had made a lot of effort to build a kind of a dome to commemorate the new millennium. And then somebody comes to the studio and says, oh, the millennium dome has become a millennium doom. You know, you relish in those things that really degrade your psyche. And remember, you are who you believe you are. I'm not here to kind of, you know, be a public speaker of some kind, because these are the jargons we hear from them. But it is not helpful for a nation to walk the path of, you know, cynicism through and through, because it's not healthy for the psyche of our children. That is not to say that we should not live according to chapter 6 of our constitution, where we want to aspire to be a nation of men and women of integrity. That's not what one is saying. But let us have a healthy balance between cynicism and caution, because the two are not the same. Cynicism produces a self-degrading nation. You know, criticism produces a country that is aware of its moral responsibility to itself and to humanity.
All right, Naomi Damba, maybe you comment as well.
Duval, there is a really intense debate going on at the grassroots of Kenya. There are people raising question, do I really belong here? What is my future? There are young people who have gone to universities and graduated and been employed for 5 or several years, who are out there. The parents' role, Duval, which is the preeminent role, which set the base for the nation, is degrading, such that the children are passed on to the school system, which is already overwhelmed and have no capacity to be able to scrutinize and help these young people become level-headed, focused, respectable, you know, the way the nation need to be. So God is raising some very legitimate issues.
Questions, yes.
Okay, that's what he's doing. What is this nation all about?
Yes.
And where are we going as a united nation under God? What about our law and order? What about the way we relate and do things to each other? You know, so these are really legitimate issues that every parents and their children need to talk about. Every church need to talk about. What is church for? The government, when I'm elected member of parliament, what does that mean? When I'm appointed in the executive as of the president executive, what is my role? And how am I supposed to behave? All these are legitimate issues that we need to talk about. Now, I raised 2 issues that my colleagues have pointed. One is corruption. And the other one is uniting this country for a purpose. We were united in 1963 because we beat the British Empire out of here. We were together. We were creating one nation under God. Now, where are we right now? And therefore, the issue is for every Kenyan to really debate with themselves. If you are a father, parents, you know, what kind of children do you want to create in the nation? There are men who have so many children with no responsibility at all. Those kids are left to the society. Who's going to take care of and shape these people to become? So these are issues we need to talk about county by counties, sub-counties, community by community, nation by nation. We need to talk about these issues.
Right. And Hashi, before I come to you, of course, Gado is actually making us talk, just to ask some probing questions and analyze where we are, what we are passing as a baton to the future generation. Where is our moral fiber? Has it become threadbare in terms of, you know, trying to have nobility of character being passed on to our children? Issues that are becoming very pertinent. And even when we have such headlines as a cheating nation that is being splashed this morning, and people, you're having the children breakfast, and they ask you, how are we a cheating nation? I mean, you'll be struggling to really answer these difficult questions that, you know, we are not faithful. The institutions of marriage is not being also honored anymore. That even right now, we're trying to redefine, you know, the definition of a family as it is, that we can see the influences are really coming. These are pertinent questions that we need to ask ourselves. Because a nation devoid of character, then how will it hold also?
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that that what Gado, you know, Gado was kicked out of this country because he pricked our conscience. You know, truth tellers are not liked, Debal. It's a universal law. But
this country or
everywhere, even here, particularly here, and you know, Debal, the greatest leaders in the world throughout history have been prophets. They have not been politicians. Debal. It's people who have brought us faith. For an example, Gado here says, if I could be, the reason why I was speaking about jobs is because that is what is going to transform this issue, Steba. That when people are idle, when people don't have anything to do, the devil is around there somewhere. But when people are busy inside there making things, he's busy from morning to night trying to feed his family, and you know, he's worried about the family. The family is the basic institution of our country. And Debal, if we don't protect the family in this republic, the republic will fail. Because the republic is built on our families. And families are the ones who produce children. The families are the ones who produce small businesses. Families are the ones that produce, go to faith centers. Families are the ones who teach. Families are the ones, they do everything. And Debal, is a moral erosion in this country. There's no question about that. The reason there's no question about that, Debal, is because in Kenya we have our divide. It's not cynicism. It's deeper than cynicism. It's a revulsion about what we have become 60 years after independence. The promise of a country that was going to provide certain changes to our lives after colonialism has generally not come to pass. And you know, I don't have to be theoretical about it. Malaysia, South Korea, Thailand, Singapore came to the University of Nairobi to take the blueprint of our development pattern. And they have passed us. And the reason they have passed us, Debal, is because they had good political leadership. People who stood by families. Debal, today, if there is no supplement for extremely poor children whose mothers have died of AIDS or have tuberculosis or meningitis, all these kinds of things. If you just go and do an anecdotal search, you're traveling around Nairobi, there's thousands upon thousands of little children hanging on to their mother's skirts because there are no jobs in this country. Debal, it is not a scourge, Debal, it's a thunderous crime. And sooner or later, Debal, the chickens are going to come home to roost. If we don't get a political leadership that understands how to transform society, if we don't get the religious clergy in this country to point to a certain moral direction, and if the battle, Debal, of the values of this country is not joined by decent men and women we are going to fail as a country. And it's not cynicism, and it's not being cynical. It's just having the proboscis or the probity to see that the country needs to move on to another level to produce certain things that are going to make our values better, going to make our culture better, and our ways of living better.
Indeed, indeed. On that note, we take a short break right now. When we circle back, of course, we shall be discussing a couple of issues that are affecting the region right now. Somalia, Al-Shabaab attacks key towns in Somalia, killing at least 5 people. At least 5 people we know that have been killed. And we have also claims of Somalia capturing a key port town from Al-Shabaab as well. We shall advise you, not really advise you, but inform you on that as well. We'll have the president, that is Mohammed Sheikh, coming to the country. This is all in an effort to try and integrate the region, or them really joining the East Africa community. What does it portend so far for the security of the Horn of Africa? Looking at that. And also, we have information from Egypt as well, who they are relinquishing plans to hold a meeting on Sudan's crisis. And he says that Egypt has relinquished plans to hold a meeting in Cairo between the signatories of the framework agreement and the non-signatories. Sudan, of course, Tribune is reporting this. The head of the Egyptian intelligence service, Abbas Kamel, was in Khartoum on January the 2nd, where he discussed their plans to bring the Sudanese political forces together to agree on a roadmap to end the political crisis caused by the coup of October 2021. We shall be discussing this and a raft of other issues as well. Don't go away. You're watching Global Today here on Morning Prime.